Hello, everyone. Welcome to Parenting Unscripted. I am your host, Katie Collett, and this is our Father's Day episode. So I thought, I know who I'm going to have in here. Look at this guy. That is my husband, father to our child, Liam. Hi, babe.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm so great. It's good to see you. We normally
Before 5 p.m.
That's true. We don't get to see each other until he gets home from work at 5 p.m. because I get up at 2. Will gets up at 5:45. And yeah, then he does dad things. How was your morning?
So far so good. You're shortchanging me though. I get up at 5.
Oh, you get up at 5.
Yeah,
How much of the show do you watch in the morning?
a lot.
Good answer.
Yep.
That was a great answer. So Will Driscoll, my husband, we've been married for more than 13 years. We have our 11-year-old son who is also William Driscoll, but we call him Liam. And I know that this morning was interesting for you at home, which Will does everything by himself since Liam was 9 weeks old. What was your morning like today?
It's always fun. Like I said, I get up at 5. I try to get everything done for me prior to having to wake up our son, so that once it's time for him to get up, we can focus on that. But part of that includes getting his breakfast ready. And of course, today there was no bread in the house. There were no waffles, none of the things that he would eat for breakfast. So you have to make an impromptu trip to the grocery store at 7 a.m. when you're already on a time crunch to get out the door by 7:50. So you pivot and you're stronger for it.
You are. And you do a good job. I mean, good dad. I'm so glad that we live in this generation, though, where the guys are super involved. So let's speak about being a dad. I want to know, what were some of the things you were most excited about to become a dad?
Well, being a sports guy myself, it's definitely probably going to be everything sports related. Is he going to like the same teams that I like? Is, playing catch, playing golf, things like that. And what I found is he doesn't like any of the teams that I like, really, at least not to the same level that I do. He likes playing sports, but he doesn't necessarily like sitting down watching sports. He's more basketball. I'm more baseball. We do have a little bit of a shared connection with golf. But so you take the sports side out of it. After that, it was really, I just want to see what's going to kind of grow up in our image, the two of us together. And so far through almost 12 years, you kind of see that he definitely looks a lot like you and your side of the family.
Yeah.
I think the personality though which is kind of more trained than anything. I think is kind of trending a little bit more toward the Driscoll side of the family.
We're getting there. We are sure getting there. Yeah, it's been fun though. It's fun to watch, like, copy and paste my face onto a human, and that's kind of cool. But then to really see the personality develop, and he is trending dangerously toward your humor. So God help us all. It's a good time though. What was something you were the most nervous about to become a dad?
Everything. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. Not everything. I wouldn't say I was nervous. How I would describe it to people was I was very anxious, because you can read all the books, you can read all of the help articles and the recommendations and talk to people who've had kids before, but nothing really prepares you for that moment, that day. So it was more just anxious as to how exactly is my life going to change.
Yeah.
It's not a nervousness thing. I would say a lot to people, I'm not nervous because there are a lot of people way less qualified than me who have raised successful kids. And so I'm not saying I'm the most qualified person or have been the most qualified person, but I've seen in other settings, there've been a lot of people who've gotten kids to be successful. So I wasn't nervous, but I was definitely very anxious about the whole scenario.
I think that our labor and delivery story, well, really just like the labor part, is actually quite hilarious, because at the time you worked for kind of like a government contractor, right? Is that right?
I worked for a company that supported government contracts.
There it is. That's what it is. And you were very specific with your instructions to me about not going into labor on a specific day, which was 1 or 2 days past the due date.
Yeah.
So what went down with that?
Well, working with government contracts, and having multiple contracts being juggled at the same time, the end of the month is, in a sales and marketing firm, is you just don't want to be out of the office at the end of the month, on the last day of the month, especially if it falls on a weekday. Well, midnight on the 30th, you come to me and say, I think I'm going into labor. I was like, let's pump the brakes. All right. Tomorrow's the last day of the month. Let's wait. Can we wait till August 1st?
What do you know about going into labor? You've never had a baby, Katie.
So the doctor calls you in, which I'm along there for the ride with you. And then once we get set up in the room, I immediately open up the laptop and I'm trying to do work emails while everything else is going on around. Probably not my finest moment as a husband or potential father, but we ended up getting it over the line, and he's still here today, 12 years later, and we're still here today, all these years later.
So obviously it worked out just fine because we are still here. You weren't really on the laptop that long, and frankly, they were still doing all the stuff to sign me in and get all the fun things rolling.
It was pretty selfish of Liam to show up on that day. Like, he couldn't wait 20, not even 24 more hours. I just needed him to wait till 5 o'clock on the 31st.
We'll just blame our child. And I think that that's one of the fun things about being a parent. We can do that.
Exactly.
Do you remember what went through your mind when Liam was finally born and they put him in your arms?
At that point, just wanted to make sure he was healthy. You're obviously very excited. There's a lot of people in the room between doctors, nurses. I don't think our families were in the room yet. I think it was just the two of us, but there's still a lot of people in there. There's so much commotion. Baby comes out, they're doing their things. They're holding him up like a fish, all of this stuff. But then you finally get to hold him and you're like, oh, wow. Okay. So now it's real. Now he's here. Now this is when the life changes, but in a good way. Now, things that we were used to doing, we now have to modify. And just seeing him and seeing how big he was 10 pounds, 4 ounces. Just not, you don't really see babies that big that often. So that was definitely a shock, but just seeing him and them not immediately taking him away because, he had a concern, the doctors were concerned, knowing that he was just there and he was ours. That was a really exciting moment.
Yeah, it was really cool. Explain to new dads too, because a lot of times they don't really know what to expect in the delivery room post-delivery. What happened with you? Because I mean, they were working on me like, stitches and all the things, but you were over with Liam. So what did they do with him and where did you go?
So once everything kind of calmed down in the room, and they're obviously taking care of you, they wheeled Liam to what was called the nursery. And this is where they kind of taught me what the bath procedure was. Like, how do we clean this child?
Yeah.
How do we clean this thing? And so they walked me through that. And I will say, the one thing that I really enjoyed about the day that Liam was born, other than the fact he was born, is that he was born in the afternoon. And apparently no babies are born in the afternoon. Everything is overnight. So we had full attention of the entire staff at Centera Princess Anne.
We were spoiled.
So he's in the nursery. There was maybe one other newborn in the nursery. And so they're showing the families how to bathe the baby safely, because their bodies aren't fully formed. So these aren't just things that you can move and do willy-nilly. So teaching us how to bathe the baby, how to hold the baby, basically just the proper care of the baby. But in that moment, basically having kind of a one-on-one with the doctor, with Liam, was just kind of nice, because I know that after that, that's when the family gets in and everybody wants to hold the baby, as they would say in Seinfeld. And so
hold the baby.
So that was a nice little 30-minute kind of respite.
We'll talk more about it too in just a second. I'm going to take just a little break here, but there's just so much fun stuff to discuss, and it's really special to be able to share it with someone who's a great dad and a great husband right around Father's Day. So we're going to talk more with Will in just a moment, so make sure you stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Parenting Unscripted. I am your host, Katie Collett, joined today for the Father's Day episode by my husband, the father of our one and only child, my husband, Will Driscoll. Welcome again, honey. So we were just talking about what it was like for you to take Liam into the nursery while the doctors were still working with me after, a fairly uneventful labor and delivery. We were really blessed with how, I don't want to say easy because it's not easy, but I had an epidural, so I cruised and
uneventful is a good term for it.
It was good. It was just, he was born, we were happy, delightful. And then came the moment to take him home. We left the hospital, we loaded him in the car, and the drive home what was that like for you?
I explain this to people all the time. In the 36 to 48 hours after Liam was born, we're at the hospital. And
Mhm.
every couple hours, somebody's in checking on you, checking on the baby, checking on dad. Does dad need a Diet Coke? Does dad need a water? Things like that.
Yeah.
It's literally, I mean, it's, full service. When you leave, that staff doesn't come with you.
Yeah.
You don't get to take the baby home for 8 hours the first day, bring them back. Then day 2, you bump it up to 16. There's no phased approach. So the drive home was, I think you said that I was driving slow. I think
Yeah.
I was just spaced out, not necessarily thinking about safety for the family, but just thinking, oh my goodness, he's ours now.
Yeah.
Like we get home, we're on our own.
Mm-hmm.
With family support, but we're on our own
Yeah.
with this child at home. So now it's diaper changes. It's trying to figure out if something's wrong, how do we figure that out? Is he hungry? Does he have gas? It's now on us. So that ride home was a lot of just kind of self-reflection and just thinking, okay, we can do this.
Yes. And we
can
can
do this.
Yeah, we're a confident couple. We can do this. You did drive very slowly, but I appreciate that so much because I'm sitting in the back with this brand new baby, and I'm just like, we got to at least get this kid home. Like we just did this. So, and what are some of the things that I mean, I know what you did, but I want you to share with dads and maybe give them some advice about when you get the baby home, ways to really be a dad and a supportive spouse, because you really, really were.
I mean, obviously, for a baby, the bond with the mother is second to none. So you can't take that away. You can't really step into that position for obvious reasons. But there's a lot of support that can be provided. It's just finding those opportunities, regardless of whether they're 6 weeks, 6 months, a year and a half. Engage with them, like play
Yeah.
with them. They love to be played with or engaged in some manner. Help with the overnight feedings. If
Oh,
if
yes.
for whatever reason breastfeeding isn't working, or it is, but the mom just needs a break, like take over the overnight feedings. Wake up when the baby wakes up. Maybe just get the baby, even if you are breastfeeding. Just go and physically get the baby so that mom doesn't have to necessarily get up, get the baby, and then get settled. Just try to find it. It's a low bar to success, honestly. It's a
Yeah.
very low bar to success. So just try to find any way to get over that low bar, and you'll find that it's going to hopefully set you up, not just as a parent, but as a partner moving forward.
Yeah, and I think you really did that too. I don't think a lot of people realize what goes into. I mean, I breastfed for about 4 months, and then my supply said, "We're out." Once I came to work, boy, did we try hard, but it did. It was like, "Bye, you go work, and I'm going to go away." So, but when you're breastfeeding, you get really hungry, and then without even asking, you know, Will for the viewers, Will would bring in a Nutri-Grain bar or always make sure I had water by the bed. And you did bring Liam in at a lot of times when there are moments where and I know that you felt this too as a dad, but there were moments where we'd fall asleep and all of a sudden Liam wasn't in our arms anymore. And we're like, where'd the baby go? And we had already put him down. We just forgot because we're so tired. But when you do have that spouse there who's offering the support like that, just I cannot emphasize enough to new dads how important that is and the difference that made for me mentally, because you were going back to work, but you would still be there at night to help me with him, which was like just chef's kiss, the greatest thing I could ever ask for. So
Yeah, schedules go out the window.
yeah, oh, they're gone. They do not exist. You just operate on tired at all times. I always laugh because there's something that you say to a lot of our friends and even people we just meet when it comes to kids, that one of the biggest things you've learned in parenting is that everything is a phase.
Yeah, I try not to give too much advice. I like kind of, I mean, I don't give unsolicited advice
Right.
is what I'll say.
That's what we
People
don't do.
ask for help, then yes, I'll do that. But I'm not the unsolicited advice person. But one thing I do say is the one thing I've learned in my time as a dad, now almost 12 years, is that everything is just a phase until the next phase begins.
Yes.
So as you're winding one phase down, the next phase is ready to ramp up. So you're never really out of this phase. Whenever you think you're getting to the finish line of the terrible twos or just, a real growth in attitude and personality that's kind of been maybe a little negative, or they're just trying to figure out, get their sea legs, if you will. The next thing is right around the corner. just to smack you right in the face and say, you don't got this.
Nope.
Now you have to figure this out. And so it just keeps you on your toes. Everything is a phase until the next phase
Yep.
begins.
Man, I think for us, 3 hit us hard, right? He like three-nager was
It was
that's a real thing.
It was around that time where what we found is even numbered years were great. Odd numbered years were challenging, I'll say.
Hellacious
Struggles.
at times.
Yeah. So 2, 4, 6 were great. 3, 5, 7, not so much.
Yeah. I mean, we actually have videos of our child as a 3-year-old saying, you know, that he wanted to go outside, and then we'd get ready to take him outside and he'd go, I don't want to go outside. And then, you know, it's time for bed and I don't want to read books. And then he'd say that he wanted to read them. And it was just like emotional torture. We were trying to figure out what to do.
Well, he has an allergic reaction to sleep.
He does.
And even to this day, he does. So.
He gave up naps when Will was in the UK for a business trip. And at that moment, still, you know, morning anchor at that time too. And our child decided both naps gone. I cried a little bit over that because the naps are for me. Like, I think a lot of times parents, like new parents don't know, but the naps, yes, they help the children, but they're for us too.
Yes.
And he quit. He like total quitter. I'm going to talk to you a lot more about, I want to hear about your favorite age range for him and why, or if you just love them all. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment after the break. But again, I'm here chatting with my husband, Will Driscoll. We are one and doneers. And so we're going to talk about having one child as well, because Will is also from a really big family. So that's going to be fun to talk about. And I can't wait to do that. Stay with us. Back here on Parenting Unscripted. I'm your host, Katie Collett, here with my husband, Will Driscoll. This is the Father's Day episode. And I was like, well, I have to have my husband on. He is the father of my child and also really good at chatting about all things life and just chatting in general, which is why we work so well. We're talkers and we're listeners. Will actually has a background in journalism too, so that's how we met. Fun fact, in case. I mean, a lot of people aren't going to actually know that, I realize now. So yeah, we met at competing TV stations in PA, and now here we are. So Will actually works now for LifeNet Health in Virginia Beach, which is awesome. You just started there running their foundation. So exciting new moves. And it's really cool for Liam to be able to see those things too, like to see the different progression in your career. I think that's really, really important. Does it feel good for you to, like, for you as a dad, for him to see the successes in your career?
Yes. I mean, obviously you want to be successful. I think it's important to also, it highlights that the plan that you may have created for yourself is going to probably change over time.
Yeah.
You know, I always wanted to be a sports broadcaster, and I can proudly say I did that for a period of 5 years after college. But then the plan had to shift.
Yeah.
And so I was like you mentioned, I was working with government contractors, but realized that wasn't necessarily the passion. Got back into sports with the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Did that for about 8 years, but really learned that through the nonprofit space, 501c3, that I was very mission driven. And that's what kind of led me over to a great organization like LifeNet Health and being able to lead their foundation, which is just a very impactful organization overall. And the work that we do at the foundation is, to me, second to none. So yeah, very exciting to be able to kind of impart that wisdom as Liam gets a bit older too.
Yeah, and I think the mission there too, it's just so nice for Liam to be able to see how you care for donor families and the importance of what they do. So someday we will talk a lot more about that as well. But I do want to get back to parenting, and Liam is 11 years old now, almost 12 at the end of July. Is there a favorite age range that you had, and why?
I think that 18 months to 3 years, because that's really when you start to see the independence really start to come out. It's wanting to create their own path and really become independent. But at the end of the day, they also pretty much need you still for 99% of the things they're trying to accomplish. But they're starting to kind of test their own personal limits. And that age was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, they're learning words, and they're kind of like trained seals. You can get them to say anything you want.
It's so true. It's so funny though to hear you say this, because that's also the most exhausting age.
Yes, very
Like
exhausting.
that range, we were so tired.
Yeah.
But it really is such a cute, fun age.
Yeah, I mean that level of development. I mean, I'm not a pediatrician, so I do not take anything I say as fact. But I just think that there's so much development that goes on, outward development in that year and a half space, that it's just so much fun to watch.
I know, I absolutely love that. Did you ever have one of those experiences where you were out with Liam? And I just can't emphasize enough how good of a dad you are. So, like, did you ever experience though when you took him out to the grocery store or somewhere and people are like, oh, like they almost acted like you were babysitting?
Never had anybody actually say that to me, but you can read a lot by people's looks.
Yeah.
Nonverbal cues are very clear.
Hmm.
And you would see people and they kind of be like, oh, well, I mean, it's kind of part of the gig.
Yeah. Look at that dad being a dad.
Yeah, it's kind of part of the gig. I mean, and
Mhm.
even now, sometimes you'll see it, and he's only a few inches shorter than me,
Yeah.
but even still, it's like, oh, they're out together. That's nice.
Yeah. To be clear, Will is 6'1". You can't tell since he's sitting down, but he's 6'1". And I mean, our child is 5'6". So he's gaining
He's
on.
very tall.
Yeah, he's really tall. Super, super tall. But yeah, it is funny. I do love that though. I think coming from a generation now of dads that are so hands-on, like all of our guy friends are very hands-on. And I love that our kids, our child, and like our friends have multiples, they see all the dads being dads and involved. And it's really cool to see. And I'm really glad that we're in this generation. And speaking of, friends having multiples, as I've said, we are one and doners, but I'm the youngest of three girls and Will is the oldest of four.
Four.
So what's it like, what like the pros and cons of an only child compared to how you grew up?
I mean, I'll say the pro, and I mean, I know that it's
I know.
not necessarily what people go to, but kids are expensive.
Yes.
And to raise them right and to give them every opportunity to explore what they want. Kids are expensive, so having one, we are fortunate to be able to really give him every opportunity he wants to pursue. The con is you don't have somebody to complain to about mom and dad.
Right.
Yeah. Even my brothers and I, we would bicker all the time. The three of us could not be more different. And I'm the fact that my parents survived the three of us growing up, and then I had a sister who came along much later after me, so I wasn't necessarily in the house by that point.
Yeah.
But the three of us, we would fight. But the one common ground that we all stood on was that, man, mom was really annoying today. Can you believe dad did that?
Mhm.
And so Liam doesn't have that. But luckily, Liam has a very good, supportive group of friends that he's very close with. So, I mean, you always envision the Norman Rockwell photo with all the kids around the
Yeah.
Christmas tree. And we have one and our dog. But
That's
you know
right.
what? That works for us. It worked for the lifestyle that we were building at the time. And I don't have any regrets.
No, neither do I. I think it is fun. Like Christmas time, I think is when it hits the most because he doesn't have a sibling there, when we're all opening gifts. But, you have 85,000 people in your family and they're all at our house having
Yeah, it's
Christmas.
true.
So we're not lacking for human life forms in the house. But we also talk about him having what we call only child survival skills. And
Yes.
don't you think that's fun to watch?
Oh, I absolutely do. I will never be the person who says we're doing anything better than the others, because we're all doing the best that we physically can.
Yeah.
But one thing that I will give us a lot of credit for, and it is a piece of advice that I will give, so I guess I'll take my last statement back, but I don't give out advice, is let your kids interact with adults when they're young.
Yes, please.
Let them interact with adults when they are young. If you have your friends over, don't just send them back to their room and put them on a device. They don't have to be out all night, but let them learn how to have a conversation, learn how to shake hands. Because I will say our son is at the very front of the line when it comes to being able to hold his own in a group of people much older than him.
Mm-hmm.
He can command a room because we've always allowed him to be around and interact with our friend group.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun to see when we go to some of the events that we go to, either for work or just for personal reasons.
Yep.
And we don't necessarily need to babysit him, and he's not pulling on our jackets or our dress and saying, "Can I please have the phone?" No, he's out there literally mingling.
He is. He's pushing us away, saying, "Hey, I got this. Please go and let me be social." We're gonna leave it on that note, and I'm really glad we could, because I do think that it's huge. Only child survival skills, great things, and you are a great dad. Happy Father's Day.
Well, thank you.
And I'm glad that you're my husband, glad you're the father of my kiddo, and life worked out wonderfully. So again, my husband, Will Driscoll, thank you so much for being here for this episode. And ladies and gentlemen, I sure hope you enjoyed this little glimpse into our home life. I know that I'll have Will on to talk a little bit more about parenting in the future. So just remember, Parenting Unscripted airs every Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock on Wavy Plus. I thank you so much again for joining us today.